Welcome into Instant Reaction in Indianapolis Colts podcast, and we are reacting to a crushing 23-20 overtime loss. The Colts in Kansas City losing to the Chiefs, and now the Colts fall to 8-3. I am Casey Vallier, joined as always by Colts Ring of Honor wide receiver Bill Brooks. Man, Bill, that was a tough one in Kansas City. That was a really, really tough one.
Yeah, saying 8-3 does not sound anywhere near 9-2.
Oh, no, it
I
doesn't.
mean, I thought, the Colts had a good opportunity to win this game against the Kansas City Chiefs and beat them, especially being up, 20-9. I
Yeah.
thought they have an opportunity to win this game, but they didn't take care of the business they needed to take care of. Some of the things down the stretch in this game they didn't take care of. I know you're going to hit on some of those things as we go on, but it's very disappointing for the Colts not to finish this game out and come home with a win. But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. But you know what? You have to bounce back from this and get ready for the game next week.
Yeah, I mean, we will continue to talk about that, but I mean, this 7 game stretch following the bye week, it's a gauntlet for the Colts, and it doesn't
Yeah.
get any easier. Especially you talk about a Houston team that's really starting to kind of come into their own. That's who the Colts get next up next Sunday. But we're talking about this Chiefs loss, and as you mentioned, Bill, the Colts at one point they're up 20-9 in the fourth quarter, and they watch that lead evaporate, and all of a sudden the Chiefs force overtime. In the overtime period, they make a game-winning field goal. But with all of these things, we're going to highlight both the good and the bad here on Instant Reaction. So starting with some of the positive things that did come out of today, I thought the pass protection was better. We've known the
Yep.
last, one of the conversations over the last couple weeks. Daniel Jones was sacked 12 times combined the last 2 games. No sacks today. There was some pressure, but I thought for the most part, the pass protection was definitely better than what it's been the last couple weeks.
Yeah, it was better. As you mentioned, DJ did not get sacked today, and that's always a positive. You don't want your quarterbacks getting hit and getting sacked and taking those unnecessary hits. But there was some pressure on him, and that played a part in the game for Daniel, especially in the second half, where the completion percentage wasn't as high as it was in the first half. So I think hopefully correcting some of those things as far as giving Daniel some more time, not being pressured as much will help definitely the offense move the ball down the field. But to give the offensive line credit for keeping Daniel somewhat clean where he didn't get pressured. I mean, we didn't get sacked, but he did get pressured. So hopefully they'll clean that up and get better. But I thought in the first half, Daniel Jones, I think was 10 for 12 in the first half. So he did a nice job of getting the ball to the guys, and the offensive line did a good job of giving him some time to throw the ball.
Now, looking at this from a defensive standpoint, some positives I took. This is kind of a two-parter. We can talk about both these guys, but Latu, I felt like he really made his presence felt. He had that big interception, the first defensive drive of the game to set up the Colts for that early touchdown. He was also credited with a full sack today, and that interception gives him 3 on the season, so he leads the Colts in interceptions. He's now the most interceptions by a defensive lineman in Colts franchise history. So pretty impressive day out of Latu. But I also thought Germaine Pratt really made his presence felt. I mean, he had 18 tackles. It's a career high for him. And I felt like some of the tackles were in just very, very key moments when he's able to find a gap and get to, it would seem like Kareem Hunt was being met by, Germaine Pratt often when the Colts needed a stop a handful of times. It was Germaine Pratt. So I thought those two guys defensively really had pretty solid days.
Yeah, no, Pratt did a nice job. I thought he played well today. The tackles he had and being there in some key situations, making the stops, especially on Hunt, time or two there. But also Latu, he played well. I thought he did a nice job. That was an athletic play by Latu. Deflecting the ball and making sure you catch it. That's not an easy thing to do, especially for a
No.
defensive lineman to do that and hold on to the ball as he was getting tackled, trying to get into the end zone. Well, I wish he would have gotten to the end zone. That would have been sweet for him to get a touchdown as well. But no, he did a nice job. And give Zaire credit also. Zaire, I think, had how many tackles he had today? Zaire had 14 tackles, so he had a good
Yeah.
game today. He made a big stop in that game as well. So there were some good things. Some players made some good plays. Some players did some nice things out there, and Pratt was one of them. And give him credit for coming in and having a guy like that understands loose defense helps out a lot. He can help the guys around him, and also he can make big plays, which he did today.
Absolutely. Now the last one I really want to highlight. This doesn't mean this was all of the good, but one of the things I did want to highlight was Anthony Gould. He made his return back to the field. He'd missed the last couple games with a knee injury, and in the punt game, he averaged 16.3 yards per punt return. And Bill, I know we have talked about this in the past that in the punt return game, if you can get a first down average, if you can average 10 yards, it really helps flip that field position. And today, I mean, he averaged a first down plus with 16 yards per return. So I thought that was a really nice boost the Colts got back there in that punt return game.
Yeah, it's a great thing when you have your punt return that can get a first down for you. And one of the things that I've always was taught in returning punts is first you got to make a good decision back there. That's the most important thing. Make a good decision. You're going to fair catch it. You're going to let it go. You're going to return it. What are you going to do? So you have to make a good decision back there first. And then after that, your goal is to, of course, hold on to the ball and then get a first down. That's one less first down the offense has to get if you can get a first down. And Gould and the punt return team did a nice job of averaging 16 yards and getting a first down plus. So that's one thing you want to see. That helps the offense. It helps the team. Like you said, it helps flip the field if the guys can get those yardage, especially more than 10 yards, and get a first down. So hats off to Gould for what he did coming back and getting those yards on the punt return.
Now, we mentioned the Colts lost today, so there are a handful of areas that you need to clean up as you head into this upcoming game against Houston. And I think it starts with the penalties. I mean, 11 total penalties, 8 of them in the first half. Way too many penalties, and they came at pretty bad times. I mean, some of these penalties came when you're driving in towards the end zone, and you get some penalties to back you up offensively, and then opportunities where you're close to getting off the field defensively, and you have a costly turnover, and a lot of them were personal foul penalties. So they're those 15-yarders that really make a huge impact, and I thought that was one of the big things that really held the Colts back in this game against the Chiefs were those 11 total penalties.
Yeah, you can't beat yourself when you have those self-inflicted wounds. That just doesn't make things easier, and especially when you're going up against a good team like the Kansas City
Right.
Chiefs. Even though their record was 5-5, they're still a talented, good team and well-coached team. So it makes it very difficult. And the Colts came out. The first drive they had 3 penalties,
Yep.
and that hurt them bad. They had a first down, it got taken back, and they had to punt the ball. So. Yes, they did get a touchdown off of that with Latu making his play, but it's still the Colts, from an offensive standpoint, couldn't move the ball down the field because of those penalties, and those things add up. You can't have those type of penalties, especially when you're playing a team like the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to eventually take advantage of those things, and when you have those penalties, you're also putting yourself behind the 8 ball because you don't get any first downs. It makes it very difficult to get first downs when you're third and 15 or second and 15, and it makes it very difficult to continue a drive. And then when you don't continue a drive, you're giving a ball to a guy that plays for those moments where they're behind and they can come back and win games. And you don't want to give guys like that many opportunities, especially with Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes. Give those guys those many opportunities. Eventually, they're going to capitalize, and unfortunately, that's what happened today.
Absolutely. And you talk about moving the football, and that kind of leads us into our next point here, Bill. The final 4 possessions for the offense, they just could not move the football. So they converted a field goal in the third quarter to make the game 20-9. Their next 4 possessions were 3 and outs, all 4 of them, a total of 12 plays for 18 yards once they got that 20-9 lead late third quarter into the fourth quarter. And he put it in perspective to what the Chiefs did in that span. The Chiefs ran 46 plays for
Wow.
291 yards. They had a touchdown, a 2 point conversion, and 2 field goals. That final field goal was the game winner. But 46 plays compared to 12 after the Colts took a 20-9 lead. That is just a massive, massive number when you look at the difference there. And I know time of possession is something that we'll talk about, but when you look at it right there, it explains a lot why time of possession was so heavily favored for Kansas City compared to the Colts. When you look at it just in that small portion, essentially just the last quarter of the game.
Yeah, when you only have 12 players, you're not giving yourself an opportunity really to make anything happen. I mean, you're really minimizing your opportunities to make big plays and kind of put a team away. And so they don't have as many opportunities to go down and score and tie the game up or go ahead of you. So Very, very disappointing, especially, you talk about that when you only have four possessions. I mean, you have those last four possessions, you go three and out. That is very, very difficult to, win football games. I mean, you,
Yeah.
you just have to take advantage of those opportunities. And when you have those opportunities, you have to win those games and take advantage of those opportunities to hopefully go down and score some points. And the Kansas City Chiefs, they've been in those situations over the years. So Patrick Mahomes, it wasn't anything. I don't think they were panicking a lot, but you still have the opportunity to kind of put this team away. And if you did that earlier, it wouldn't have to come down to the end of the game and overtime and stuff like that. The game would have been over earlier. So, it's very disappointing that they didn't capitalize on those opportunities. And that's something that they're going to have to do. Moving forward, you have to find ways to capitalize on those opportunities. And the bottom line is you have to execute. You just have to execute those plays so you can get first down, so you can ease up some time, move the ball down the field, fatigue out their defense, and don't give the opponent opportunity to go down and score themselves to tie the game up or go ahead. So something the coach is going to have to work on, and hopefully, I think they will get better at it, and they'll find a way to hopefully close games like that out, and get a win.
And this is kind of big picture. We're just talking about here, the overall, the amount of possessions you aren't converting on. And one of the things that I think that Joe Wright, who was on the call with Matt Taylor today on radio, the thing that he kept saying every possession in those, it was all right, get a first down, get one first down, and then you look at it and you get another first down. And that is one of the things that I kept thinking too. It's like, if you could just get a first down here, how much it changes what they do defensively. And then if you get a second first down, how much it changes. So it sounds minor, but sometimes those are where games are kind of on that teeter-totter, if you will. You're one way or the other, and if you just can't move the football, it really makes it hard. And that's clearly what happened with the Colts. Now, final couple things, and I want to dive into just, some individual players that really we saw positives, and then today I think we saw a little bit of a step back. But I thought Daniel Jones in the first half was great. He was 10 of 12, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns. But then in the second half, you got to tip your cap to Steve Spagnuolo, because he was able to make adjustments clearly, because Daniel Jones was 8 of 18 for 83 yards in the second half. There was more pressure. We talked about that. There was definitely a different sense of urgency, it almost felt, from the defensive side of the ball. And it really made the Colts have some fits, and they weren't able to overcome that. So when you look at it from a first half to the second half, Daniel Jones was a completely different player in this game.
Yeah, it was. To give Kansas City Chiefs credit. They did. I'm sure they did some things a little bit differently in the second half to kind of put some more pressure on Daniel Jones to kind of maybe get him to hurry up or rush some of the throws that he had, and make it more difficult for him to get those throws off and to complete those throws. So give the Kansas City Chiefs credit, and you knew that was going to happen because Spagnuolo likes to bring pressure. He likes to
Yeah.
pressure the quarterback. He likes to do different things kind of for you. So I'm sure they made some adjustments and do a few different things from a defensive standpoint. But give them credit. They did a nice job. Daniel Jones played well, as I mentioned earlier in the first half, 10 to 12, and you just mentioned it as well. So, but then the second half, unfortunately, things didn't go the way for the Colts. And those are things you have to clean up, and you have to be ready for, because it's going to happen. Spags is not going to just sit there and just wait for something to happen. They're going to try to make something happen. And when you go against teams like that, they're going to try to force you and make something happen. You have to be ready for those type of defenses, and hopefully you can counter that and make some plays yourself.
And then Jonathan Taylor, he's probably the most talked about Colt player to this point with what he has done in the NFL in 2025, leading the league in essentially every rushing category, and he was held in check. 16 carries for 58 yards. Clearly, the mission for the Chiefs defense was to stop the run, and I think they did a really good job in that category today. 16 carries for just 58 yards for Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I thought they'd try to do that, stop the run, and probably stop the run on the way to the quarterback to put some pressure on the quarterback. And if they ran the ball, they can tackle JT. And if they didn't, JT didn't have the ball, still get to the quarterback. So give them credit. They did a nice job of slowing the run game down. And with JT, you know, averaged 3.6 yards per carry. So give the Chiefs some credit and give Spagnuolo some credit for the things they did out there in the football field. But you have to try your best to hopefully get the ball into JT's hands. But you have to have the opportunity to do that. I mean, when you don't have the ball that much, when you have 91 plays by the Kansas City Chiefs and you only
Right.
have 50 plays, it makes it very difficult to have those opportunities to make plays for JT. So it's one thing the Colts are going to have to work on to make sure that they get some first downs and hopefully possess the ball a little bit longer. That way they give themselves more opportunities to make plays.
Well, and you talk about Jonathan Taylor wanting to get the ball in his hands. Jonathan Taylor has played pretty well against the AFC South. So with Houston being the next team up, everybody's got a bad taste in their mouth. I got a good feeling that you're going to see, prime Jonathan Taylor next week inside of Lucas Oil because this team knows the importance of what that game will mean on next Sunday, and he's looking at what he did this most recent time out. I'm sure he wants a little bit more revenge coming off that one. Now, final thing on this game, Bill, and we've kind of talked about it, but here are the numbers, and it's staggering. The Colts had just 10 total first downs. Now, they took a Kansas City Chiefs team into overtime. They had 10 first downs. The Chiefs had 33. The Chiefs had the football for 42 minutes and 35 seconds, and the Colts just 25 minutes and 28 seconds. It's incredibly tough to win football games when those are the numbers. So I'm sure that is also an area, this Colts team, when they look at who they're playing next week, that is going to be a point of emphasis to try and make sure that those numbers do not repeat themselves.
Definitely. I mean, you don't want to give a team more opportunities. I mean, you give someone 42 minutes. Yes, I know it's overtime, but you give a team 42 minutes
Yeah.
of possessing the football. Eventually, you know what? Your defense is going to be tired. They're going to wear out. And if you give a team like the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes, with Andy Reid, they're eventually going to figure things out and eventually
Right.
going to score some points and enough points to win a game. So you can't give teams like that more opportunities. And you have to make sure you, as a team, try to convert some of those third downs into first downs and make more first downs so that you can possess the ball a little bit longer. And they don't have as many opportunities. Plus, it gives you opportunity to hopefully score some points as well. So that's something that I'm sure they will look at and work on, and hopefully will be a lot better against the Houston Texans because it's a division game coming up, and these are big games now. And you know what? Talk to some other people. You can't think about getting a number one seed now. The most important thing right now is trying to win a division, and you have some division games coming up, and you have to make sure you win those games because those are very important for you to get into the playoffs. And then once you get into the playoffs, then you can worry about, you know what, maybe we try to get the number one seed here, number one seed, and get home field advantage throughout the playoffs. But for right now, the most important thing is win the division.
Absolutely. Well, Bill, the season's not over.
Nope.
Everything is still in front of this team. The Colts are sitting at 8-3. Now, as far as help goes, when you're looking at the division and the playoff standings, the Colts did not get a lot of help. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they're victorious in overtime over the Arizona
Mm.
Cardinals. The Texans won on Thursday night. So both those teams add a win in the win column. So the Texans, they now improved to 6-5. The Jags, they're 7-4. So the AFC South, it's starting to become a little bit closer. We kind of envisioned this when the season started. But as you mentioned, the next 2 weeks, you have the Texans. You got the Texans at Lucas Oil on Sunday, and then you travel to Jacksonville. So you have a really good opportunity for the Colts to take care of business the next couple weeks, give yourself a little bit more of a cushion inside the AFC South. And then you talk about the first step to getting the playoffs is winning the division. You get yourself a little bit closer to that. So like I said, 8-3, everything is still in front of this team. All of the goals you wanted, it's all still there, but it all starts next week when the Houston Texans come to town, 6-5 against the 8-3 Colts. It's going to be a big one. Bill, thank you so much for joining me tonight here on
Well,
Instant
thank you, my
Reaction.
man. Thank
I
you. It's always fun.
I appreciate you more than you know. So once again, we will do this again next Sunday. As I mentioned, it's the Houston Texans traveling to Indy, Finally, the Colts get to play back inside Lucas Oil Stadium. The last home game, technically, was in Berlin. So it's been over a month since the Colts have been inside the friendly confines of Lucas Oil, but they'll be back there on Sunday. But we just wrapped up the Colts crushing overtime loss here on Instant Reaction. They fall to the Kansas City Chiefs 23-3 in overtime. For Bill Brooks, I am Casey Vallier. We'll be back right here next Sunday to talk again on Instant Reaction.